Okay.
You want to sit?
Alright, everybody ready? Hopefully the information that I have is going to help you guys speed up your grooms. There's always a learning curve to anything and everything, so don't expect that the next time you get in the salon, oh my god, it's going to be so much faster. Practice and like getting familiar with techniques is what's going to speed you up more than anything else, but these techniques, once you know them, they're going to make you so much more efficient. Go ahead and click the next slide. Oh, boring science. If you don't know the why on why you're doing what we're doing, the how doesn't really matter, because at least for me personally, I'm not going to follow through with it, because like, why am I putting in all this extra effort, you know? So skin science, this is what a dog's skin looks like. It's very similar to what we have as humans. So we have our skin barrier here. It's going to take a full 28 days for both people and dogs to have a full rotation, if you will, on the skin barrier. We have the epidermis here. This is all going to like shed off. The dermis is going to come up. But if you can click the next slide, please. The main thing that I want us to focus on with this slide is notice how we have multiple hairs coming out of one hair follicle. For our double-coated dogs, what that's going to look like is we're going to have one long guard hair coming out, and all these extra hairs coming out of the same follicle is going to be our undercoat. That's actually going to spiral around that guard hair here. So when we are clippering those types of dogs, that's just something to keep in mind. We'll get into that later. Super important is this muscle right here. I can't pronounce it.
Erector pili muscle.
Pili muscle, yes. So notice how this muscle is connected not only to the skin barrier right here, but it's also connected to that follicle shaft. That muscle is what causes dogs like Chico here to be able to raise his hackles when he gets nervous, when dog puffs up their shoulders and stuff like that. It's because of this muscle right here. What we do in the salon can damage this muscle, but we're going to get into that in the next slide. And then also we have our sebaceous gland. So when it comes to us washing our dogs, if anyone has ever heard of overwashing a dog, don't wash your dog more than once a month, every other month. It's not as big of a concern if we're keeping in mind the purpose of this muscle, or I'm sorry, this gland right here. The sebaceous gland creates sebum. That's going to travel down the hair follicle here and be like a lotion on our skin, that sebum layer. We have it, our dogs have it, and pretty much any animal that has skin has a sebaceous layer on top. It's what locks in the moisture, because our skin is the largest muscle or organ, largest organ on our body. The sebum is what protects it. So we can strip the sebum off a dog and cause dry skin issues and stuff like that, or we can restore it and preserve it, what have you. Skin and Coat 101 by Dr. Cliff Faber is a seminar that you can get at pretty much any Barkley production. It's about 4 hours long, I believe. He also has a 15-minute YouTube video, which is pretty quick and easy to listen to. If you're at Severna Park, it's been on the board for like 3 weeks now. But does anyone have any questions on this slide before we move on? Awesome, go ahead and click it. So I'm going to keep this super brief. This is the stages of growth. Could you click the next slide? So if anyone ever has interest in focusing on wire-coated breeds, hand stripping, things like that, this is super important to know and understand. Not every hair on most dogs is going to be at the same growth point at any one time. So it's very easy for us to accidentally overbrush a dog and strip out healthy coat, which will damage it over time. I'm mainly concerned about my wire-coated and my double-coated dogs when I'm looking at this right here, because our dogs with hair, they don't deal with this nearly as much, but they do shed hair just like we do. We shed about 100 hairs a day. But when you are working with a wire-coated dog, something that you're hand stripping, this is the stage that we're looking to take the hair out. We want to be very careful not to rip it out at the bulb when it's young and healthy like this, because that's what's going to cause clipper damage, softening the coat on our wire-coated breeds, things like that. Yeah, that's pretty much it on this slide. Any questions? Yes.
So I know when dogs get neutered or spayed, the coat changed. So what happens if the dog's being stripped and it gets neutered or spayed? Obviously the texture changes. Can we still rip out
So spay coat doesn't always happen. It's not a guarantee. It is a concern. For the most part, when I see spay coat having a big effect on a dog, it's gonna be a lot of times our golden retrievers, our shepherd dogs, our like truly double coated dogs. In which case, when they get that fine tuffy hair, I actually take, I don't have any stripping knives out, but I'll actually take like a stripping knife or a pumice stone, and I'll hold the skin taut and I'll gently pluck out that soft hair. It de-sheds with a Furminator brush really easily. But when it comes to our terriers and our schnauzers and things like that, there's not really much you can do to prevent it. But if you were to improperly groom a dog, you could definitely worsen it. We'll get into that a little bit more when we get to our wire-coated slide. But yes, spay coat, it's a hormonal thing. So I guess there could technically, theoretically, be like a hormonal therapy you could do for it, but I have no clue on any of that. If you can hit the next slide for me. So, I'm going to tell you some things today that might piss you off. When it comes to our tools and things like that, we need to be very mindful on what kind of tool we're using on what type of coat. And also, like, slicker brushes, they're not all the same, obviously. But really quickly, I'm just going to follow the points because I'm going to go off track. Improper drying techniques can increase the likelihood of tangles between grooms. I have a standard poodle. If I do not stretch dry her hair, she's going to be mad at me 3 or 4 days. I'll go into the full drying process on a dog when we get Zenith up on the table, but obviously, you know, very beginner mistakes is when you have a dog on the table and you're just whipping your hand around like this. You're going to cause little tangles like that. The first time my hands ever started going numb, it was with a blow dryer in my hand. So not only can we damage the coat, we can also damage ourselves with improper drying techniques. Certain tools can damage the coat. This brush right here, I absolutely hate it. I don't even own a Furminator anymore. This tool is very often recommended to our German Shepherd clients, our Border Collies, our Golden Retrievers, and with the teeth being so short, all it's really doing is grabbing onto that long, healthy top coat, that silky, shiny hair, and it's just ripping it out. 90% of the hair that you take out with a tool like this, we're probably going to be causing some skin damage and coat damage to our double-coated breeds. If you have a Schnauzer or a West Highland or something like that, and you're looking to prevent clipper lines, like say you've already clippered the dog down and you take this tool to it, it'll be so good at like smoothing the coat after the fact. But generally, I like to think of this tool as a stripping tool rather than carding. Carding is removing undercoat, stripping is physically plucking the hair. Furminator tools tend to do a lot more plucking than they do gently taking out undercoat. We have our coat rake guide here. I can't tell you how many times I've seen someone go into a dirty coat on like a Pyrenees or a Malamute or the thighs on a Golden Retriever, and they're just ripping with that thing. When we have a tool like this, the teeth are serrated, and it's pretty much like we're using a really heavy duty comb. A lot of people, they'll take it to the dog and they'll just pull. Absolutely horrible thing to do. If you are using this tool, I like to use it on a completely clean dog. Generally, I might be blow drying the dog while I'm doing it. I'm putting it in and I'm gently rocking it out and pulling it away. If you know the pat pull method, we're not trying to pull those tangles out. We're trying to convince them to untangle themselves. It's more of a rolling motion rather than just ripping and pulling. You can do a lot of damage with this tool, and I'll show you some photos of what that damage looks like in the next slide. But moving on, cleaning ears and things like that, like obviously doing a groom on this dog is going to be a million times easier than doing it on this dog. This dog has been stretch dried, fluff dried, heat dried, and he's nice and dirty. Something I like to do with my dogs during check-in is flip open that ear, take a look at the inside. We always want to clean our ears after the bath, but sometimes those ears are like nasty, infected, waxy. I want to check on it beforehand. I might need to flush the ear before we get in the tub. Just get all that wax out, because that's one of the things that I see getting missed a lot is you'll get this really nice face, but then the ears, they still look kind of waxy. So being really diligent about our ears in the tub. And yeah, clippering a coat that hasn't been properly prepped, you're just gonna be going over it again and again and again. It's gonna be a big time waster. I'd rather spend 5 more minutes drying on the table than spend an extra 15-20 minutes fussing with a coat that doesn't wanna cooperate with me because I haven't prepped it properly. This slide is a little haphazard. We're gonna get really detailed with each individual coat type as we go. So this is just kind of like a visual reference. Oh, the Chris and Jim brush. I don't use my Chris and Jim Big G Slicker anymore. I spent $80 on it at a trade show, and for a year and a half, it's what prevented me from keeping my poodle in a Continental. The teeth on this brush, if you look at them, they're very, you can't see any definite clear lines on the brush itself. So this is a similar tool. This is the Foxy Roxy version of the Big G Slicker. Looking at it, you can see the pins, but there's not really any definition to it. If I take an actual dematting tool here, you can see the difference, how you can see columns of the teeth. So what's gonna happen is when I bring my hair through that brush, when it goes through this brush, the hair knows exactly where it needs to go. It's gonna go in smooth lines, it's gonna follow the line of the brush. But with this tool, as the hair goes through, it's going to zigzag through the teeth. It's not going to, it's really good for dematting a dog. It's not good for getting a smooth finish on a dog. So if you were to do a dog that's getting maybe a 1/2 inch, the Big G Slicker is fantastic. But if you have any dog that you're trying to preserve coat on, a Big G Slicker or a slicker brush that doesn't have inline teeth, it's gonna make your job a little bit harder, and it's gonna make the owner's job harder at home keeping that dog maintained. Any questions on that? Yeah, I like the Big G Slicker. I don't use it for dogs that keep coat. And this is the damage that we can cause. So if you were to take that demat rake and just pull on that hair, this is the kind of knots and tangles that we're going to be dealing with. We have our healthy hair right here. If you were to use a clarifying shampoo, the goal of that shampoo is to lift the cuticle on the hair, get all those little thingies raised. But then we want to follow up with a conditioner to help smooth all of that back down after the fact. If we're giving our dog a really thorough bath, getting them nice and clean, and we're not conditioning them after the fact, that's definitely going to make it a little bit harder for our clients to keep their dogs maintained at home in between groomings, which is going to keep them on your table for longer while they're here. So split ends is something that we deal with, but breakage, that's the main thing that's going to cause our dogs to mat and tangle in between grooms. So if we're like pulling on the hair with the comb or really fighting with, I really like to mention golden retriever thighs. I see a lot of people that are just trying whatever they can to get those knots and tangles out, and in the process we're damaging the hair a lot, and we're gonna just bring them back in next time and we're gonna have to shave it. So these are microscopic photos of all the damages that we can cause. Obviously, all these little strands, it's just giving us more friction in the dog's hair. So the more breakage, the more icky that we have going on, the more likely that the hair next to it is just going to want to Velcro to it, and it's all going to bind together. So using conditioners is super important to try to like smooth those cuticles down, reduce friction. But most of this, it's 9 times out of 10 technique of what we're doing in the salon when we're running into breakage like that, or even our clients at home, you know. Any questions on this? Cool. You can hit the next slide for me. Okay, cool. Now we can actually talk about dogs. So, no stress, Carrie, you're good.
If anyone wants to record while I'm gone, please. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Okay, our coat types. There are up to 15. We're only really going to be talking about 4 in here.
Bye. She says, I love Carrie.
There is another Barkley seminar called the 15 Coat Types. It is, I believe, a 4-hour seminar as well. Absolutely fantastic. I've sat in on this one at least twice. Skin and Coat by Dr. Cliff Faber, I've listened to at least 4 times by now. But there's just so much information on these seminars that you're not really going to be able to absorb it all in one session. So if you do continued education, I definitely recommend like revisit it a year or 2 later. You're going to absorb a lot more information. But we have our wire coats, our drop coats, curly, double coats. We're not really gonna get into hairless. But those are the main 4 that we're really dealing with in the salon. You can go ahead and click the next slide. So, our golden retriever here. This is obviously not like a purebred show dog golden retriever, but even though it's not a show dog, knowing and understanding why the golden retriever looks the way it does is gonna help us in the salon. No matter what kind of dog it is that we're working on, if it's a purebred dog, if that client is looking for a breed trim, or that client is doing any kind of like outdoor activities, sports with their dogs, understanding what it was bred for and how to maintain its true coat type is gonna make things a lot easier on us in the salon. So our golden retriever here, it's written up here. What is the purpose of a golden retriever's coat? It is a double-coated dog. It is a water retriever. They're meant to be going into the water retrieving ducks and things like that. So this is a very hairy dog that's meant to get cold and wet. We have all this long hair coming off its stomach, its forelegs, its thighs, its tail. The purpose, it's also supposed to have a large bib right here. The purpose of all that extra hair flowing off the dog is so that when he's coming out of the water, the strand of hair, the water's gonna flow off the dog, and it's going to come and collect at the tips of the hair where it drips off. If you think of a poodle in their continental cut, that's a water retrieving cut. That cut is so we're looking to protect like all of our internal organs right here with the hair. It's gonna flow down here. It's gonna pull all the water away from the heart and the lungs. On the poodle, the kidneys right here, this is where we keep our rosettes. It's gonna pull the water away from the rosettes, away from the kidneys, keep the kidneys nice and warm. It's gonna pull the water off the legs, pull water off the stomach where we have all these internal organs here. All this extra hair is to try to help keep the dog warm and dry. When we think about how we're grooming it in the salon, if we're focusing on trying to keep that coat water retardant, it's gonna make it easier for our clients at home. Their dogs aren't gonna be, like, when they do get muddy, we can help them get unmuddy faster if we treat the coat properly. I'll get into that when we go into coat damage, so that'll make a little bit more sense. If you can click the slide, please. Cool, so when we're blow drying these dogs, we wanna focus on the way the coat should lay. Normally, when I start my dogs, I start at the back foot. I'm pulling the hair all the way down. I'm drying with the grain of the hair. Let me see, can I switch? Okay. Sorry, I totally mind farted just now. But with my double-coated dogs, my wire dogs, I want to be blow drying with the growth of the coat. Go ahead and click the next slide. That'll make it easier. Because I want to focus on this peeling muscle right here. If I were to, go back one slide. If I were to blow dry this direction across the back of the dog, I'm going to stretch that muscle. I'm going to pull it away from itself. It can actually rip and tear. And if we continuously blow dry our dogs in the opposite direction of the growth, when it comes to dogs with this type of coat, we can break down that muscle, make it so a dog can no longer actually raise its hackles. And if you're dealing with a lot of short-coated dogs that are just horrible for the blow dryer, we might actually be causing that by causing discomfort, because it can be painful. If you've ever pet a cat in the wrong direction, some cats appreciate it, most cats really don't, because they have that muscle right there, we're pulling on them. Go ahead and click the next slide for me. So this is genetic. You know, all the curls that you can see on this border collie right here, it's definitely genetic. But us in the salon, we can definitely worsen that with our blow drying techniques. A lot of clients that I've run into that have golden retrievers or border collies where they want me to actually do a clipper cut on their dogs, a lot of them do have the natural curl to them. And if I were to blow dry it the opposite way, the client's gonna be a little extra unhappy. They're gonna be more likely to wanna shave it down in the future. Me, my goal is in preserving the coat, keeping things as healthy as possible. I'm not a big fan of shaving double-coated dogs. There's nothing wrong with it for people who do. Good, live your best life. Someone's gonna do it, you know, whether it's us or another salon. But me personally, I like to try to preserve the health of the skin and the hair as much as possible. I want to try to avoid my client wanting a shave down at whatever cost. So blow drying from neck to tail is gonna make that a lot easier. Is everything okay?
Yeah, I just saw Zenith like running around a lot.
Oh, okay.
She's like banging from corner to corner.
Alrighty. Other clippering a double-coated dog is not recommended. Clippering in reverse is going to definitely increase our chances of causing coat damage. Coat damage being where we have our nice, healthy, slick guard hairs and all those undercoats that spiral around it. When we cut that guard hair, the little undercoat that coils around it, it's not going to be able to stretch as much as it normally would, and those coils will actually shrink against the skin. If anyone's ever worked on a Pomeranian that gets a clipper cut, that's the most often that you'll see that. They're very prone to clipper alopecia. The undercoat just flattens itself, it pancakes on the skin, and it's going to want to mat very easily. Yes?
Is that what happened to Arlo?
So Arlo has a genetic health condition. I started grooming Arlo when he was a puppy. He's never been clippered.
Okay,
Arlo is one of the few dogs where I actually told the owner, I'm like, I'm not a big fan of clippering double-coated dogs, but in his case, I would be comfortable doing it, just because he was a dog that was born with no guard coat.
Okay,
He's literally just has undercoat. He's a Pomeranian. And like I said, he has a hormonal disorder. Him and his mom actually have the same hormonal deficiency, which is really funny.
Yeah, that is. Not a perfect dog for her.
But yeah, like some of these things are genetic. There's nothing that we can do to prevent it, but we can definitely worsen things. With this dog right here, something that you could also do is lay a wet towel over his back to try to tame those curls down a little bit. That's something that people do outside of the show ring if they have a dog with a little bit of a cowlick. But my main thing is I'll do whatever it is that the client wants. I just want them to be fully informed on what I'm doing. So when I have a double-coated dog, let's say it's like a 10-month-old Australian Shepherd puppy. He's never been groomed before. If my client were to want a sanitary shave on that dog, I would let them know, I can definitely do that for you today. I want to let you know, once I shave his sanitary, all of those wire hairs, those slick hairs that the stuff, pee and poo, it'll generally slide right off those hairs. Once I cut it off, the only thing left is going to be undercoat. So if your dog were to have a diarrhea blowout, you are going to physically have to give him a full bath after the fact, because we have cut through all that protective guard coat. All that's left is that soft, downy, absorbent undercoat. It's totally fine if they want that done. I have no issue with it, but they are going to have to do a little bit of cleaning back there after the fact. It's not going to be a one-all, cure-all. A lot of times when we have our golden retriever clients, they want us to cut the thighs really tight, which is totally fine. A lot of times the dogs that I have to cut thigh mats out of are the dogs that get their thighs trimmed, because we're cutting through all that undercoat. We're cutting through that top coat, the undercoat is compressing on itself, and the client doesn't want to brush. That's why they got their coat cut short. It's just a cycle. So it's something I like to let my clients know. I'll do it for you, but I just want you to know what you're asking for before I do it. Because with dogs like that, it will take up to 2 years before their coat fully returns. Sometimes it may never return fully. So I just, like I said, I like my clients to know what they're getting into. Any questions on double-coated dogs? Cool, go ahead, yes.
So hypothetically, if someone wanted to skim or in the sanitary use a guard comb.
Yeah.
In the sanitary, do you prefer that?
If you are cutting into that guard hair, that long shiny hair, even if it is at a longer trim, if you are exposing that undercoat, it's just going to cause the undercoat to compress a little bit. So 9 times out of 10, I don't really run into issues. I used to have some Pyrenees clients that actually worked on a farm. Those were the clients that I said, I really recommend you not doing a sanitary shave on your farm dogs because they live outside, they need that hair. Most of our house dogs, it's not really a big concern. But if you do have clients that work their dogs, it's just something to think about. Guard combs, we have a 1/4-inch guard comb. Skimming with a guard comb, it could mean different things to different people. My main thing is when I cut into the hair, is it still shiny? So there's only so much hair that you can take off with it still staying shiny. Once we cut through all that shininess, all that's left is that soft, downy undercoat. So that's what I'm trying to think about. When a client I have a lot of clients nowadays that are actually saying, if I cut him too short, will this damage stuff? And they're really good at having a back and forth conversation with me about it. But I like to let them know I don't want to make any promises or guarantees on length, because I don't physically know until I start cutting that hair. Generally, I'll start with my longest guard comb and work my way shorter incrementally. You'll start to see it dull. Once I notice that the hair is starting to dull, that's when I pull back a little bit. But here we have our wire-coated dogs. They're also double-coated breeds. So when we have a Schnauzer, a West Highland, a Cairn Terrier, these are the dogs where if we shave them down, they're definitely going to get softer over time. It took me maybe 4 years of grooming before I actually met a wire-coated dog with wiry hair that gets haircuts. You know, most of our wire-coated dogs, they've been clippered since birth, and they now have that very soft coat. When it comes to, I'm sorry, 1 second. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff that applies to our double-coated dogs is also going to apply to our wire-coated breeds. I want to make sure I'm de-shedding them because they do shed. I want to go with the flow of the coat. With these dogs, they do have hair in some regards. It will continuously grow. It has a natural stopping point. But when it comes to preserving the coat on these type of dogs, the main thing I want to focus on is the top line, because that's what everyone wants really nice and tight on these dogs. So generally what I like to do is if I have a pet dog client that's coming in, I try to stick with like a 5 or a 4 blade when it comes to their backs and their top lines, because if I go really short on these dogs, I can cause things like Schnauzer bumps and things like that. We're also exposing their skin to the sun, which can increase their chances of skin cancer and things like that. So on my wire coats, I try to keep it just a little bit fuzzier if I can. When it comes to the legs on these dogs, they're a lot more forgiving. We're not really worried about the softening of the leg hair on a show Schnauzer or anything like that. So when it comes to the blow drying technique on these dogs, whereas with our border collies and things like that, we want everything to be flowing straight down. With these, we have a little bit more flexibility. Generally, whichever way I'm brushing the dog is the way that I want to clipper it. So when I have this kind of dog in the salon, I want the hair right here to lay flat, so I'm brushing this way. If I want more volume in the legs, I'm going to brush and blow dry up and away from the body to give that nice full lift. It's going to make scissoring a lot easier on you if you're blow drying in the direction that you're going to be brushing. So if you back brush, you're probably going to want to blow dry the direction that you would be back brushing. Yeah, so if anyone has ever done a Cairn Terrier that gets like a number 5 all over, it's frustrating. Yeah, it's so frustrating because you get clipper lines no matter what you do. So what I like to do with my wire-coated dogs, most of my dogs, I put them straight in the bathtub. With my wire-coated kids, I'll actually put them on the table first and I'll give them a really thorough brush out. So the tools that I like to use on them are going to be my coat rakes, whatever these things are called. Sometimes I'll actually take my ear powder and I'll cover the back of the dog in ear powder to add a little bit more friction. That's also why I'm brushing the dog dirty. A dirty coat has a bit more texture to it. When you're brushing out that undercoat, it's going to be a lot easier to get grip on that undercoat on a dirty dog. Generally with my double coated dogs, because they're softer, I don't do a lot of brushing before the bath. But with my wire coated dogs, especially if they have a really thick coat like my West Highlands, my Cairn Terriers, I try to do a good bit of de-shedding on their top line before we get in the tub. Oh yeah, and we already went over that a little bit. Hand stripping is when you're physically grabbing the hair and pulling it out from the root. Carding is pretty much like if you take a slicker brush to a dog, that's carding. Any tool that you're using with the hopes of getting undercoat to come out is carding. But stripping is when you physically pluck, which is why I'm not a big fan of the Furminator tool, because it grabs the hair and it plucks it out rather than gently coaxing it. Any questions on wire coats? Go ahead, click that button. This is my dogs. That's Adelaide and Zenith. Curly coated dogs, they're not able to raise their hackles. They probably still have that axillary muscle thing, But for whatever reason, it's not super active. They can't raise their hackles. They can't make themselves big. So when it comes to back brushing and things like that, we're not too worried about damaging that skin. They also have curly hair. So whatever way you dry it, whatever way you brush it, that's the way it's going to want to lay. It's very important with these types of dogs, if you're trying to get a really nice finish, we have to blow dry them properly. We have to stretch that curl. Excuse me, like I said before, you want to blow dry the direction that you're brushing the dog. So if you're doing a guard comb over a dog, if you're like, say here's the head, here's the butt, if you're blow drying this way, you're gonna want the hair's gonna wanna lay the way that you're blow drying it. So when you go to clipper later, you're clippering this same way as well. The hair's gonna lay flat, close to the body. I like to blow dry against the grain. I'm back brushing against the grain. I want that hair to be nice and full and stand up for me. I do like to use a heated blow dryer on my curly coated dogs, especially if I'm trying to get that really nice Asian fusion kind of face or really nice big full column legs. If ever you do use heated dryers, I like to use a heat protectant spray. So the best shot is what Michelle tends to provide for us. I know we have it here. I'm pretty sure we have it over at Crofton as well. But the Wonder Pet spray by iGroom, that's what I use for my grooming competitions. We're going to get a little bit more into curly coats down the line, but does anyone have any questions on this? Go ahead and click it for me. And then we have our drop coats. So Maltese and Maltese mixes, it tends to be pretty difficult to get a really nice finish on those dogs because a lot of times they are blow dried properly. If I have a dog like this where I'm trying to get everything to sit nice and sleek, I'm not going to want to blow dry up against the grain of the hair because that's going to make the hair want to sit nice and full and voluminous. You know, if you're trying to straighten your own hair in the morning, you're not flipping your head over and blow drying it down because that's going to give you a lot of volume. Throughout the groom, I really want to focus on where am I trying to add sleekness, where am I trying to add volume, where am I trying to add lift. The way that you blow dry can have a big effect on that. They are also unable to raise their hackles. Although with this hound here, I don't know if anyone's ever seen one of these guys in person. They actually do have a very short coat right here. It is hand stripped, the top line on an Afghan hound. So I don't know if they can actually raise their hackles or not. But all of this hair right here, it would be an absolute crime for me to blow dry up against all that length. It's gonna knot, it's gonna tangle, it's gonna cause friction. It's not gonna be sleek and shiny. And yeah, when it comes to faces, the direction that you blow dry is going to be very important. I have another slide on that later. Go ahead and click it. Cool. We're getting through this in record time. When it comes to getting a really nice finish on your dog, if you're not washing it properly, obviously that's going to have a big effect. We talked about the ears earlier, but when it comes to shampooing our dogs, I see a lot of things that get missed, and that's going to cause frustration down the line. Me personally, whenever I'm shampooing a dog, the very first thing that I shampoo is going to be the feet. You know, I want to make sure that I'm getting in between the toes, scrubbing really well. Even myself, like I've gotten a dog out of the tub, put them on the table, and found dirt around the toenails. It's so common. You know, we don't really think about the feet, especially when we have a really big dog in the tub. So it's just something to think about. When it comes to patterns and routines, everyone has a way that they say is the right way to do things, but you and your routine, that's what's most important. Whatever you're going to be most comfortable with and stick to, that's what's going to help you build speed. So me personally, 90% of my dogs that I have, they go straight into the bathtub. It just makes things a little bit easier for me. I don't like taking a dog on the table, off the table, in the tub, out of the tub, on the table, off the table. It's just a lot of steps. Most of the dogs that work with me, they understand that routine, especially when we get to our older dogs. When you have a dog that's maybe starting to go deaf and blind, having a solid routine for those kind of dogs is going to make them a lot more comfortable in the salon because they know what's coming next and they know what to expect. But if you want to put your dog on the table first, shave the pads, cut the nails, do whatever you're most comfortable with, I would just stick to a routine if you're trying to build speed. What's better, the Blue Mule system, bottle bathing, bucket bathing? It really doesn't matter as long as you're using it properly. So if you have a shampoo that's labeled as a 50-to-1, I would do everything in my power to try to get it as close to that 50-to-1 ratio as possible, because an under-diluted shampoo can also cause more friction and damage to our coat. We don't want to strip too much of that sebum layer off of the hair and skin if we can avoid it. If you're doing a competition level groom, that's unavoidable. The goal is to completely strip the skin and coat, but then re-nourish. But yeah, as long as you are making sure you're getting every part of the body, that's what's most important. Something that I like to think about is, should we be wetting the dog before we soak them up? It really depends on how you're washing it. If you're using a bottle dilution system, if you're working on a wet dog, you're going to continue to dilute that shampoo if it's pre-wet. If you're using the Blue Mule or the Hydro Surge or whatever it's called and the dog is already wet, again, we're going to continue to dilute that shampoo if we're putting that shampoo and water mixture on an already wet dog. If you have a shampoo that you're using straight on the dog, go ahead and wet it down first. It's not a huge concern, but if I'm looking to get a really nice finish on a dog, or if I know that the dog has a really poor coat, I'm going to focus a little bit more on making sure my shampoo ratios are what they're recommended on the bottle, because those companies, they've spent thousands of dollars on testing the perfect ratio for that shampoo, and most of the time we just ignore it. But they put all that testing in, and the recommendations are there for a reason. The shampoos that we recently added the Smart Wash to our rotation, the 50-to-1, the Wags to Riches package, if you will. I like the Smart Wash shampoo. The main marketing focus on that shampoo is it's not supposed to strip that sebum layer off the skin. So if you have a dog that the conditioner's just really heavy on them, the Smart Wash is a good option for getting that dog clean without drying out its skin. But if you have a dog that's already dealing with dry skin, I really like the Argan Oil shampoo. The Bark to Basics Argan Oil is actually a big recommendation for dogs that are trying to preserve long coat. So I use it on my competition dogs in between grooms to keep them maintained. It adds a little bit of strength to the hair, it prevents breakage, it's really nice. And then clarifying shampoos, if anyone's ever used the Chris and Gin's Clean Start, I believe iGroom has a clarifying shampoo as well. Those are the shampoos that I'm using pre-competition. It gives you a clean start. It gets all the extra product out of the hair, all the extra gunk and grime. That way, when I get onto my competition table, the judges have nothing to bat an eye at. It helps give you a very consistent, clean dog. So if you do have a dog that you're really struggling with the texture on, like I said, those Maltese mixes tend to be a really big one. If you do have a clarifying shampoo at hand, give it a try and see if that's helpful, because those little Maltese, like that soft, downy hair, if there's extra product in it, it's not gonna cooperate with you. And should you be using a conditioner? So if we are stripping all of the sebum off of the hair and the skin, we've removed that protective barrier. So think about when you have a really nasty Cocker Spaniel that has a chronic skin infection. Our goal is to get all that extra oil and gunk off the coat, right? And 9 times out of 10, what I see groomers doing in the salon is they don't condition that dog because it's an oily dog and they don't want to add more oil to it. But what happens is the skin is like, oh, I'm really dry, I need to produce more oil. So the dog produces more oil and more oil and more oil. And you run into this cycle of, I need to wash all the oil off this dog, and then it produces all this oil, and we throw that equilibrium out of max. Think of that pendulum, it's swinging dramatically from one side to the other. It's unable to find that happy medium. So what I do on those really oily dogs to try to prevent them from continuing to be really oily dogs is I absolutely slather them in conditioner before I wash them. That oil in the conditioner is going to bind with the oil on the dog's skin, and it's going to help wash everything away when I do add my shampoo. So I condition everything, I let it sit for 5 minutes, rinse it all off, I put my shampoo on, whether it's a clarifying shampoo or an argan oil shampoo or whatever works. most of the time it's gonna be like a chlorhexidine that the client provides for us because they've been fighting with this for a while. But I use whatever shampoo the client wants me to use, and then I go in again with my conditioner, and I condition that dog really well. What I want to do is I want to repair that skin oil barrier. I want the skin to say, oh, I'm hydrated. I don't need to produce all that oil right now. So I've actually had maybe 3 or 4 clients, 2 of which are Cocker Spaniels, where we've pretty much gotten their skin conditions under control. There was this guy, Harvey, where his whole chest was like a 3x2 cake of skin gunk and nasty. I told his parents to stop using the chlorhexidine at home. If they are going to use the chlorhexidine, make sure you condition him really well, because what does our chlorhexidine do? It strips all that oil and grime and everything off the skin. It's not a bad tool, but we need to understand that when we're using chlorhexidine, we're taking everything that the dog has off, because they're trying to wash away yeast and bacteria, you know? So they're going to wash all the natural sebum away as well. It is a good product if you're also following up with a conditioner, because we need to protect that skin barrier. Another thing to keep in mind is a healthy hydrated hair will dry a lot faster than damaged hair. I've bleached my hair in my own bathroom so many times, and I can't tell you how much longer it takes to blow dry my hair after I bleached it. Because damaged hair, it's dry, it wants to hold on to that moisture. So if I have a dog and I'm not conditioning it and its hair is getting drier and drier and drier, a lot of our really thick doodle clients that take forever to blow dry, I notice people stop conditioning them because they're worried that the heavy conditioner is going to make the blow dry take longer. I've cut 5-10 minutes off of some of these giant doodles just by adding a conditioner to them, because the hair is like, oh, I don't need to hold on to that moisture. I have the moisture from the conditioner. So it's much more willing to let go of all that extra hair. And if you think back to what our lifted cuticle looks like, you know, instead of having that nice smooth hair shaft, if you have a lifted cuticle, that's more texture for the water molecules to hold on to. You know, so if you condition and you smooth that hair shaft, it's going to make things a lot easier. And yeah, skin health equals a weightless finish. I don't remember why I read that. But yeah, when it comes to grooming competitions, I do condition. Bedlington Terriers, they're one of the most difficult hair types to work with. I've learned a lot working with this dog and her family. But what I use on my competition days is called an after wash solution. So I use After You Bathe by Chris Christensen. There's other ones. It's called a final rinse solution. So the goal of that is to smooth the hair cuticle without adding weight. If you are struggling with a coat and you do want to invest your own money in a final rinse solution, power to you. But if ever you look to compete, I use After You Bathe by Chris Christensen on all of my competition dogs. It's really nice. Yeah, different conditioners are heavier. You just gotta play around with it. Sometimes I'll use a lower dilution on a conditioner if I don't have a lightweight one on hand. And that's the end of our slideshow. Next I'll probably do Zenith first as far as washing and blow drying her. And then we'll do Chico. I'm glad that he's gotten a lot more comfortable. Does anyone have any questions on the boring part of the seminar?
I just didn't have a water before.
I'm sorry! I literally just thought that to myself. Cool.
That's right, she's already wanting to wear glasses.
I take a walk so I don't get overstimulated.
Alright, if anyone wants to go take a quick walk, go use the restroom. Let me turn off my camera.